You already know the milestones. $1,000, then 10, then the numbers people put on vision boards and thermometer charts taped to refrigerators. You know the theory. But on a Tuesday at 7:04 a.m., sitting in a 2014 Accord whose driver's window takes 2 tries to close, you check an account holding 1,214.67, and nothing in any chart explains what that number actually does to a life. Nobody explains that part. The money conversation is run by people selling either panic or fantasy, and both of them skip the middle, the long, quiet middle where almost everyone actually lives, where the levels get crossed in parking lots and kitchens and nothing announces itself when they do. The change is real. It's just invisible from the outside. So this is the map nobody hands you. Level 1, $1,000. The estimate comes on a Wednesday from a mechanic who calls instead of texting, which is never good. Front wheel bearing and a brake job the car has been hinting at for months. $847.12. Parts and labor, ready by Friday. You stand in the kitchen holding the phone, and your chest does something small and tight, an old reflex firing right on schedule. And then, for the first time in your adult life, it lets go. Because the number on the estimate is smaller than the number in the account. You say yes. You say Friday works. You hang up and the kitchen is just a kitchen again. Not relief exactly, more like the absence of a sound you didn't know had been playing. You remember the last time a repair like this landed 4 years ago when it landed on nothing. The transmission then, $1,100, and you put it on the card and carried it into spring, and every statement was a small tax on your attention for months. That version of you wasn't careless. That version of you was just standing on air the way most people are taught to stand, one paycheck stacked on the next with nothing underneath, and nobody calls it dangerous because everybody's doing it. Here's the part nobody explains about the first $1,000. It isn't wealth. It doesn't change what you can buy or where you can live or how anyone looks at you. What it changes is the category of things that happen to you. A dead wheel bearing used to be an event, a thing with consequences, phone calls, interest. Now it's an inconvenience, somewhere between a flat tire and a bad haircut. Life keeps sending the same bills to everyone at roughly the same rate. The only variable is what those bills land on. For years, they landed directly on your nervous system. Now they land on a floor. Currently, fewer than half of American adults say they could cover a $1,000 emergency from savings or cash on hand. You just did, on a Wednesday, in socks, standing between the coffee maker and the sink. Derek from work leases a dark blue Silverado, $812 a month, and it looks tremendous in the parking lot, high and gleaming next to your Accord. He watches your window take 2 tries to close one afternoon and says, "You know they make new ones now," and it's a good line, so you laugh because it is a little funny. You don't mention the account. There's nothing to mention. It's $1,000. His floor mats might have cost more, but he drives home carrying $812 of next month with him every month, and you drive home carrying nothing, and from the outside it looks for all the world like he's winning. That Friday, you pick up the car and pay the $847.12, and the account drops to $367.55, and on Saturday morning, you set up a transfer to build it back, $150 at a time. It doesn't feel like a win exactly. It feels like patching a roof in dry weather. Nobody claps for this. There's no photo of it, nothing to park in a driveway, just a number climbing quietly back toward where it was, in the background of your life. But a floor only keeps you from falling through. It doesn't take you anywhere, which raises the question of what happens when the number keeps growing past the size of any reasonable emergency, when it stops being about the week you're in and starts belonging to years you haven't met yet. Level 2, $10,000. You open the spreadsheet on a Sunday in February, coffee still too hot to drink, the house quiet in that specific way Sunday mornings are quiet. The balance crossed 5 figures at some point in the last 3 weeks. There was no alert, no threshold sound, no line on the floor of the bank lighting up as you stepped over it. You crossed it on some ordinary Thursday and found out on a Sunday, and the distance between those 2 moments tells you something true about the whole climb ahead. The levels don't feel like levels when you're inside them. Everything eventually just becomes Tuesday. What actually changes at 10,000 is quieter and stranger than the number. The money stops being a pile and starts being a lens. You begin, without ever deciding to, pricing the world in a different currency. The phone you've been circling for a month costs $1,200, and one evening at the kitchen table, you do the arithmetic you can't undo afterward. At what your work actually pays you after taxes, about $26 an hour, that phone is 46 hours. More than a full week of your one life handed across a counter for a slightly better camera and a screen you will crack within a year anyway. You don't buy it that night. Not because you can't. You can, easily. That's the strange part. Because the price changed the moment the units did. And 46 hours is a number your body understands in a way $1,200 never was. Kevin signs a lease that same month, the new building downtown, the one with the gym on the third floor and a lobby that smells like a hotel. $2,340 a month. He gives you the tour with real joy in his face, and the joy is genuine, and the apartment is genuinely beautiful. The light alone is worth something. He's not wrong to want what he wants. You just want something different, and the difference doesn't need to be said out loud in his living room, so you tell him the place looks great because it does. At work, there's Dana, in accounting, mid-50s, unhurried in a way that reads as either serenity or surrender, you can't tell which. She wears a watch you looked up once at your desk, the kind with the small blue cabochon crown. And out of new habit, you started the hour math on it and stopped when the number passed 1,000 hours. You file her quietly under a category. The category is wrong, but you won't find that out for a while. Currently, the country as a whole saves about 3 cents of every after-tax dollar it earns. You've been setting aside closer to 12, quietly, automatically, in the background of your life, and nobody assigned it to you, and nobody checks your work, and no one at any point is going to mention it. That Sunday, you go through the statements line by line and find $184 a month in subscriptions, 4 of which you had genuinely forgotten owning. You cancel $61.97 worth and raise the automatic transfer by $80, and the whole exercise takes 40 minutes and improves nothing you can see or touch or show anyone. It doesn't feel like progress exactly. It feels like finding a slow leak in a tire. $10,000 mostly just sits there though. It protects. It waits, which raises a stranger question. At what point does the money stop waiting and start doing something on its own without asking you first? Level 3, $50,000. The notification arrives on a Thursday, the kind you usually swipe away without reading. Interest posted, $164.38. You look at it longer than it deserves. Somewhere in a server farm, an account with the least imaginative name you could give it. You called it savings because you are not a poet, earned more in a month at a little over 4% than your first job paid you in a week of bagging groceries at 16. You did nothing for it. You were asleep for a third of it. That's the entire point of it. For the first time in your life, money you already traded hours for is out earning without you, quietly, automatically in the background of your life. This is also the level where the nights change. For years, you would surface at 2:17 a.m. with the arithmetic of the month running behind your eyes, the card, the timing of the paycheck, the margin measured in days, the specific dread of the envelope you hadn't opened. Somewhere in the 40s, that stopped. Not peace exactly, just quiet. The math still exists. It simply no longer needs you awake to hold it. You notice the change the way you notice a neighbor's dog stopped barking, weeks after the fact, by the silence. Here's the thing nobody explains about the middle of this climb. It's boring on purpose, and the boredom is a filter. Between 10,000 and 50, almost all of the growth is still just you, transfers, restraint, the unglamorous shoveling of surplus from one column to another, month after identical month. Compounding is real, but at this altitude, it whispers. The system is designed so that the years when the habit matters most are precisely the years it shows the least, which is exactly when most people conclude the whole thing isn't working and go finance the boat. The quitting doesn't happen at the bottom. It happens here, in the flat gray middle, where nothing is wrong and nothing is visible. Currently, The average credit card balance in this country sits around $6,500 at interest rates north of 20%. A machine running in reverse, around the clock, in millions of kitchens. Yours runs forward. You pay interest to no one. Somewhere along the way, you became the person it gets paid to. At lunch, Derek mentions the truck payment, unprompted, the way people mention a wait. $812, 3 years left on it, and the trade-in math, he says, has gone upside down. He'd have to pay them to walk away. He laughs when he says it, and the laugh doesn't reach anywhere. You don't say anything. There is no sentence available that helps him without costing him, so you eat and you let it pass. And in the parking lot afterward, your window takes 2 tries while his Silverado gleams like the day he signed for it. That night, you finally moved the emergency fund into the higher yield account you'd been meaning to open for a year. 20 minutes of typing, a 2-day transfer, done. Nothing marks the moment as significant except the small private knowledge that you made it. But the machine is pointed the right way now, and the next question arrives on its own. Everyone talks about 6 figures like a border crossing, papers checked, life stamped. What actually changes when the comma shows up? Anything? Level 4, $100,000. The number appears on a Tuesday morning between backing out of the driveway and the first meeting of the day. You check the phone at a red light, a habit you keep meaning to quit, and there it is, all accounts combined, $100,241. You wait at the light to feel the thing you assumed would arrive with it. The light turns green. Someone behind you taps their horn, politely, once. You drive to work, and the day is a day. And by Thursday, the comma just becomes Tuesday too. But underneath the flatness, the physics have changed, and you notice it in the statements before you notice it anywhere else. There are months now when the market moves your balance more than your paycheck does. A good stretch adds $1,900 you never deposited. A bad week erases 2 months of transfers and then, some weeks later, hands them back without apologizing or explaining where it went. The first 100,000 took you the better part of a decade. The arithmetic on the next one, at the same contributions and anything like a historical return, keeps coming out to less than half that, and the one after shorter still. The hill you've been pushing against all these years has begun, very slightly, to tilt the other way. No one will congratulate you because the entire event is a number on a screen that only you will ever see. Nobody claps for this. The applause was never the product. Currently, the median 401k balance in this country is about $34,400. Not for people starting out, that's across every age and every account. You are carrying almost 3 of those medians now, assembled out of automatic transfers with all the drama of a dental cleaning. Kevin's rent renewal comes in at $2,510, and he tells you about it at lunch with a shrug that doesn't quite land and mentions in the same breath that he's used the building's gym twice, total, in a year. He's already looking at the next place, 1 more bedroom, better light, a balcony this time. You recognize the mechanism from the inside because you have run it yourself. The way a better thing becomes the baseline thing within a month. The way the upgrade dissolves into ordinary and leaves only the payment behind, dressed as a slightly better version of your life. Not your rent, not your lease, not any single decision you could point to. Just a ratchet that only turns one way, quietly, unless somebody notices it turning. Dana, in the break room, mentions offhand that January is when her contribution bumps itself up 1%. She set it up years ago, she says, so she'd never have to be brave annually. She says it the way other people describe rotating their tires, stirring her coffee, already thinking about something else. You revise nothing about your category for her yet. You should. That night, you do nothing special, which is the whole discipline now. You don't reallocate, don't tinker, don't celebrate, don't check it again before bed. The transfer fires on the first like it always does. Still, a balance on a calm Tuesday is one kind of fact. The real question, the one this entire climb has secretly been preparing you to answer, is what the number does on the worst Thursday of your year. Level 5, $250,000. Although this level was never really about the amount. The meeting invite lands on a Thursday at 8:40 a.m. 15 minutes, no agenda, a conference room with the blinds down, and everyone knows before anyone says it, the way a room can know something collectively and silently. By 9:10, you and 40 other people, Derek among them, are carrying boxes to the elevator under fluorescent light that makes every face the same color. The company calls it a restructuring. The severance is 4 weeks. The storm, to be precise about it, is identical for every person in that room. Same morning, same email, same cardboard. The boats are not. You drive home and sit at the kitchen table and open the spreadsheet, hands steadier than you expected them to be, and do the only math that matters now. $2,850 a month to run your life, $31,400 in cash in the boring named account, everything else invested and untouched behind it. 11 months. The number sits there on the screen, still and factual, like a load-bearing wall revealed during a renovation. It was always in there, holding weight, and you're only now seeing it plain. Not calm exactly. Your chest is doing something low and electric, and sleep takes a while that night. But underneath the electricity, there is a floor, and you can feel your whole weight settle onto it. The panic arrives, checks the math, and leaves without unpacking. Derek calls that night at 9:40. The truck payment clears in 9 days, and the lease has an exit penalty that reads like a hostage note, and there's a pitch in his voice you've never heard from him in 6 years of parking lot conversations. He isn't asking you for money. He's asking for the thing underneath money, the settledness, and that can't be transferred between accounts. So you listen, longer than is comfortable. You don't say anything about the 11 months, or the boring named account, or the window that takes 2 tries. There is no version of your good news that helps him tonight. You offer what's real instead, a contact at your old vendor, a resume read, a Saturday with a pot of coffee, and he takes the Saturday, and that turns out to matter more than it sounds. Currently, hardship withdrawals from retirement accounts have risen for 4 straight years, a record share of savers pulling money out early just to stay upright. Through 11 weeks of unemployment, you withdraw nothing. The machine keeps compounding in the dark, indifferent, while you sleep badly for completely ordinary reasons. The weeks themselves are stranger than the fear. You pause the automatic transfer for the first time in 9 years, and it stings in a way you decide not to examine too closely. You apply, you wait, you walk in the middle of weekday mornings past houses full of employed people. The Saturday with Derek turns into 3 Saturdays, his kitchen table, his numbers laid out plainly for the first time, and by the third one, he has a plan that is his and not yours, which is the only kind that holds. The offer that finally comes is decent rather than perfect, and you negotiate it slowly, over 6 days, without the smell of need on you, because patience, it turns out, is just runway wearing a suit. You sign in week 7, and the first thing you do that evening is turn the transfer back on. Nobody claps for this either, but a question follows you into the new badge photo and the unfamiliar parking lot, and it doesn't leave. If the money can hold the floor on the worst Thursday, what is the last level actually for? Level 6, $1 million. And the honest answer is that the last level was never a number at all. You find that out on a Wednesday at 11:58 p.m. when your sister's text comes through. Mom fell. They're at the hospital. Can you come? You are booking the 6 a.m. flight by 12:20 a.m., $647, seat 14C, and here is the entire miracle, the thing every transfer since the wheel bearing was secretly purchasing in installments. You never check the balance, not before you tap the button, not after. The thought does not occur because there is no version of the answer that changes what you do. The money's whole job, in the 1 hour it matters most, is to be absent from your mind. Not spent, not saved, just silent. You sit in the waiting room the next morning under the same fluorescent light every waiting room has ever had, phone face down on your knee, holding your sister's coffee while she talks to the nurse, and you are entirely, uselessly, completely there, which is the only currency the room accepts. Your mother is fine. A wrist, a scare, a story she will tell wrong at Thanksgiving for years. Dana's retirement lunch happens that spring, and you drive back to the old building for it. And somewhere between the sheet cake and the speeches, She tells you the part you never had a category for. She watched the 2009 layoffs from the accounting side, processed the paperwork herself, saw precisely whose lives bent and whose broke, and understood at 38 that the difference was never the salaries. She has kept 6 months in cash ever since. She has bumped her contribution 1% every January for over 20 years. And she bought the watch, the one with the small blue cabochon crown, outright in cash for her 50th after the accounts were full and boring and hers. It's not that she ever stopped wanting beautiful things, she says, turning it once on her wrist. She just finally knew their real price, and one day the price was fine. She was never behind you on this road. She was ahead the whole time, wearing it quietly. Currently, one large plan provider counts about 665,000 people holding $1 million or more in their 401s, and the profile is almost insulting in its plainness. Roughly 25 years of steady contributions, ordinary jobs, no windfall, no story anyone would film. Boring was never the obstacle to the number. Boring is the qualification. Your own projection tab, assuming 7% and nothing heroic, puts the seventh figure somewhere in your early 60s, a round number built entirely out of unround ones, out of $150 transfers and $61.97 cancellations and 11 weeks of not touching what you'd built. And you already know exactly how it will feel when it comes, because you've crossed enough levels now to know how all of them feel. There will be no threshold sound. It will arrive on an ordinary morning, and by that Thursday, it will just become Tuesday, the way everything does. On the drive home, the window takes 2 tries, the way it has for 9 years. It used to sound like something the car was apologizing for. Now it sounds different, like the quietest expensive thing you own. Every month it never cost you, sitting somewhere in the number, still compounding, still working the night shift. Same sound, new meaning, which makes you wonder, merging onto the highway in the dark, what all of it was converting into this whole time, underneath the balances. Tomorrow looks the way tomorrow always looks. You'll make the same coffee and let it cool too long on the same counter, drive the same car, sit in mostly the same meetings, and the number will do whatever it does today without consulting you. Knowing the map doesn't fix Monday. The math has never once fixed a Monday. The floor doesn't change the weather. It only changes what the weather can reach, and most days you won't think about it at all, which was always the point. But something routine will happen to you this week. A purchase will almost happen and then quietly won't. A pause at a checkout, 3 seconds, invisible to everyone including almost you. Or a bill will land and be merely an inconvenience, and you'll feel the old reflex fire and release without finishing. Nobody will see either moment. There's no level for what those moments are slowly assembling, no chart with a line for it, no email with a number at the top. Because the levels were never really measuring the money. They were measuring how much of your mind the money still occupied, and every crossing bought a little of your attention back. And somewhere ahead of you, there's an ordinary morning when it occupies nothing at all, the account full and silent and yours, and the only question left is the one no balance can answer. Now that the money is finally quiet, what fills all that room where the worry used to?